All right, guys. So welcome back. This week we're going to continue with our questions about Africa and learning all things about it. And today we have a really special guest, Kevin. He is a expert in the East Cape, and Peyton has actually been there a few times. And I want to learn about all the different regions of hunting in Africa and South Africa, and I want to learn what it's like in each one of these. And Peyton actually kind of tempted me with going over to the East Cape next year, actually. And the outfitter we'd be going with is Kevin here. So I wanted to kind of dive into a little bit deeper and figure out what I should expect before actually going. So, Kevin, Peyton, thank you guys for hopping on today. I'm looking forward to it a lot.
Thanks, David. Appreciate it. Kevin, thanks for joining us from across the pond today. You look great. It's good to see you and hear from you again, my friend.
Thanks, Peyton. Thanks, David. It's a privilege to be with you guys. Great to hear you again, Peyton. So yeah, looking forward to our discussion and hopefully just shining a bit of a light on the Eastern Cape, which we think is one of the top hunting destinations. But we're probably a little bit biased coming from here. But yeah, it would be great to give you guys some more info about our province.
From everything that Peyton has told me, it is pretty special over there with you guys.
Yeah,
we like to think so. Yeah.
yeah, and I'm glad, Kevin, we were able to. I'm really excited for David to be able to go on his first trip to Africa next year, and I can't think of a better place for him to visit than Waterfowl Farm there with Western Safaris with you and Nat and with the gang there. I'm excited for him to see Africa for the first time. It's so cool going with a group of first timers, especially since David's my friend and I work with him. I'm already looking forward to seeing the look on his face when he gets there that first morning, and it's like hunting in Eastern Cape Disneyland. I mean, he's going to have a blast.
I think it will be neat. I'm looking forward to it, Kevin.
Yeah, it's going to be great. We look forward to hosting you guys. And we hope to live up to the expectations, but I'm sure we will. Africa normally doesn't disappoint.
Sounds like it. So, Kevin, kind of give me a rundown of your family farm or how you guys got your start. I want to learn more about that.
Yeah, we've been here a long time. Our family came out in the 1820s. They were English settlers. They actually settled down on a farm along the coast first, and then moved up here in around about the 1840s. So the original settler, he had a big family, nine sons and two daughters, and it was at a time, I think, in Europe where people were migrating just to look for new opportunities. It was actually generally either the States or Southern Africa, and he had a big family, so I guess he was looking for opportunities for his sons. And so around about the late 1840s, they moved up. We are about, I suppose it would be about just around about 80 miles inland. And yeah, our family I'm now on this particular ranch. I'm fifth generation here. So the Eastern Cape in those days was on the frontier of the Cape British colony. So they were trying to establish, settlers in this area to consolidate British colonial rule in those days. And to the east were the Xhosa people. So we have a history, and I was just speaking to the last guys that were here with us, that parallels a lot of things that happened with you guys in the States, in that we had immigrants looking for a better life, and we had settlers establishing themselves, and then in the States it went from east to west, and here it went from west to east, and so you think of a lot of the first settlers would have come out here with very little on wagons, just like they did in the States, on the Oregon Trail and that kind of stuff. So, and the original settler was a farmer in the United Kingdom, and they came up here because they wanted to sort of establish sheep farming. Obviously, in those days, it was pretty wild country. They would have had to brave the elements and the wildlife and the predators and the tribespeople. But those are our roots. And we've been on Waterfall and in this area for not far off 200 years. So very deep roots here.
Hey, David, what's kind of funny is the last time when Christy and I were last hunting with Kevin and Nat down there a few years ago, Kevin took us on we took a day off hunting, and we went and got coffee. We're touring around Grahamstown, and he takes us up, and Kevin, you got to help me out, but he takes us up to this lookout point with like a bunch of nice buildings and stuff, and there was like a statue there or something, and I'm looking at this thing, and it's like you're talking about the history of the family and stuff there, and like their family name was on the statue of this. I'm like, wait a minute, that's your family name. I'm like, so it's the history is just unbelievable of the settling of the Eastern Cape. And like I said, I really nerd out on that stuff, but it was really funny at the time.
Yeah, so that's really cool to hear about.
We have some, like all families, I think we have some famous and some infamous members. But our family was one of the original parties and one of the bigger parties. So it's all entrenched. Obviously, also there were Dutch settlers before our 1820 settlers, and actually our family has connections because we are descendant from the second son of the original settler, and he married an Afrikaans woman. So our history has a lot of influence from various times when different European settlers came in. So at some point there were French and Dutch and English, and then later even German settlers that came into the Eastern Cape. So we are a bit of a melting pot here.
Yeah, and Kevin, when you talk about the Eastern Cape, can you like geographically where you're talking about? If somebody's looking at a map of South Africa, where are they talking? Where are you talking about?
Okay, the name probably can maybe be misleading slightly in the fact that it's almost centrally located in South Africa. It was called Eastern Cape because it was in the eastern part of the old Cape province. So you can think of a province as like a state. And when we had the new political dispensation and we had our first democratic elections, the original 4 states became 9, and the Cape was divided into 3 provinces. The one is the Western Cape, which is Cape Town, and then the Northern Cape, which is in the north bordering Namibia and Botswana, and then the Eastern Cape, which is in the eastern part of the Cape province. But further east of us, we still have KwaZulu-Natal. So we are almost right on the southern part of South Africa and Africa, and centrally. So you get the southern coastline, and then as it goes up further east, it actually goes north as well. So it runs in a sort of northeasterly direction up into Natal. So we're quite central in South Africa. We're almost the same distance from Cape Town and Johannesburg, and right down in the bottom part of the country, so quite far south. I'm not sure the exact latitude, but yeah. I don't know if that gives you guys an idea, sort of where we...
Yeah.
Yeah.
No,
Yeah.
absolutely.
So what got you into taking hunters? Give me more of that story.
Yeah, I had the privilege of growing up on a farm. Um, I started hunting from a very early age. Uh, my granddad was a mad keen hunter, as was my dad, all my cousins. Um, my granddad started, and we benefited a lot from his work with, conserving some of the antelope and wildlife species. At a time when he just did it because of his love for wildlife, and there wasn't really in those days an economic incentive. There wasn't really a commercial hunting industry. Um, and then later on, because of his work, we actually here had some of the first safaris ever, and it was kind of connected because we had Bontebok. So one of the first outfitters in South Africa was someone called Norman Dean, who was actually based in Natal, and he used to come down. They used to actually fly in and charter in those days and start, do take the East Cape species here. So I think that's sort of exposed our family to that side of hunting, the safari outfitting side. And then my uncle was actually one of the first Eastern Cape outfitters. And then as things happen in life when you're in this, it's a small circle. My wife's family are also outfitters in Zimbabwe and Mozambique. They were one of the earlier outfitters in Zimbabwe. So I went up there after I married her and worked for my father-in-law, so I got more exposure in the hunting industry. So that's sort of my background in terms of outfitting. I mean, I'm now been 20 years as a registered professional hunter, or you could call it a guide. But that aside, just the love for hunting and outdoors and fishing just came from growing up here. From 6-7 years of age, I had a 22, and I'd be out chasing after rock rabbits and guinea fowl and stuff like that. So it was a very lucky upbringing, and since then I had a passion for it, which I carried on also with my studying. I ended up doing wildlife management, and then after that going up to Zimbabwe and working in the outfitting business. And then when I came back, I used that experience and those connections to sort of establish our own hunting business here in the early 2000s.
Kevin, I want to come back to the Bontebok thing in just a couple of minutes, because that is a really interesting topic. What are some of for a first timer like David's going to be coming for the first time in April, and I'll use him as an example. What are some of the species that hunters can expect to see? How is the hunting done? A lot of spot and stalk and glassing, of course, but what are some of the species that are Eastern Cape, maybe native to Eastern Cape, or specific that they're going to be hunting and that they can expect to see on a daily basis on your farm?
Yeah, yes, Peyton. I mean, as you know, you've been here. I'd say our flagship species is kudu. Our SCI actually classified our kudu as Cape kudu. They tend to be a bit of a physically slightly smaller than the kudu up in Limpopo, much darker in coloration. But that would be one of our species that is most prolific. But we have quite a wide range of species. A lot of springbuck, mountain reedbuck, impala, warthog. So it's a lot of the more common, I'll call them common antelope, but fantastic hunting. So, and to get on sort of the type of hunting that we do, I think that's one of the big attractions for the Eastern Cape. A lot of the guys that have hunted here often remark, and I've never done any hunting in North America, but they say it reminds them of elk hunting. That's the closest thing, especially our kudu. So the terrain is a really nice mixture, and that means we've got a lot of opportunities for getting into good positions, and then just glassing, and it's all a lot of spot and stalk. You really hunt with your eyes, whereas in other areas, up north, it's different style of hunting. Also, very nice hunting. It's more maybe tracking or still hunting or things like that. So we have a nice mixture of sort of habitats, ecotypes, which lends itself to the diversity of animals we have, within close proximity. So we have, just on the farm, we have some completely open, like grassland areas, and then some areas that sort of like scattered brush, a bit more like savanna type, and then we get very thick, like scrub forest almost. We call it valley bushveld. So that variety makes for nice hunting, and it makes for a variety of species.
Yeah, I think one of the unique species, and I don't know if you mentioned this or not, that I tell people about when they call is that you're going to have a chance to hunt free-ranging black wildebeest, whereas up in the Limpopo and stuff, they have a real problem with them up there with disease and whatnot. But down in the Eastern Cape, that was the first animal that I shot. That I hit. I missed one before that, but is that you get a chance to hunt really nice black wildebeest right there on the farm as well, right?
That is one of our fantastic species to hunt. It's a really unique trophy. Probably along with the Free State and the Eastern Cape, it's where you have really significant populations and really good trophy quality in our area, just because it's their prime area, their prime habitat. So a fantastic species to hunt, a really nice hunt, and quite a unique, cool looking animal. One of my favorites.
I'm looking at mine on the wall right now while we're talking.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Hey, and speaking of springbuck, now I could be wrong, but you can actually hunt all the different color variations right there on the farm as well, right? I can't remember, but I know that I shot a black and a common, but can you talk a little about that, Kevin? I know there's a bunch of different color variations for springbuck that guys go after, and like the springbuck slam and things like that.
So we have obviously primarily the normal, we call it a common springbuck, sort of like a brown color, actually my favorite. And then we have a lot of black springbuck as well. Those are the two color variations we have on waterfall. There's some white springbuck that are around in the area. So you can, within a pretty close driving distance, you can shoot the three main sort of color variants if guys want to shoot all the different types of springbuck.
Yeah, so if you want to get into some of the, Peyton, you can also kind of key in on this from a new guy learning about Africa. Kind of give me some of the differences between East Cape and our last podcast we did in Limpopo. What are some of the differences that I can expect to see?
I would say Limpopo often is and when I say differences, I don't, one isn't better than the other. It's just a different, completely, like Peyton said, a completely different experience. Terrain is very different. So Limpopo generally, not always, tends to be slightly flatter, it's bushveld savanna, so your field of view is not as far. You're generally going to be shooting closer distances than us and what we do, and you're often hunting where we often glassing from areas. Sometimes from the Limpopo, you spotting from the vehicle and then getting off and either just following the direction the animals have been in, or maybe even tracking them, or you're just doing like slow, still walking through areas. But I think Peyton, he's done a couple of hunts up there, and he's also hunted down here with me. So
yeah,
I think he would be quite qualified to compare.
Yeah, I think Kevin hit it right on the head, David. In that, in my experience in the Limpopo, it's a lot of close shots, spotting game from the truck, or spotting while you're just out doing short walkabouts in between road sections. It's much like sandier. It's very much, it's just kind of a different world, where in the Eastern Cape and hunting with Kevin, you're basically sitting on top of hilltops, glassing for miles around. It was much more of a traditional Western style hunt, like for elk, like he was saying. And the shot distances were definitely longer in the Eastern Cape than up in Limpopo. In the Limpopo, it seems like even the last trip we were on here a few weeks ago, I don't think anybody shot anything over 75 yards, maybe. I mean, all the shots that I was in on, or people that I was with. But when I personally hunted with Kevin before, I mean, Kevin, I think we poked out probably 250 yards on that mountain blue buck, probably.
I would say most of our shots are between 100 to 200, and even and up to 250, and when guys are comfortable, even up to 300 is not uncommon. So as a guide, you obviously also adjust to what your client is comfortable with. But the biggest thing for me, the biggest plus for us is when you spot an animal and you make the call and you select, well, that's a nice kudu bull. Then it's the experience of constructing the stalk, doing the stalk together with your client, and the excitement and the adrenaline in knowing that what your target is, and just trying to cut that distance down, which with kudu is one of the best. I mean, I don't think I'll get enough of kudu hunting. If I had to hunt one species, certainly for the rest of my life, it would be that. So, just because of that, the challenge of getting that stalk in and getting into a shooting position, because you can see big bulls, but sometimes they just you can't get to them. So I think for me, I think that's one of the big attractions for hunting here with us.
That's what I've heard from everybody, is how much they enjoy kudu hunting. And honestly, I think if there was one species in Africa that I wanted to try to get, would be kudu. They're just such a cool animal. And you compared them to elk a while ago as far as spotting, stalking, and glassing them and everything. When you said that, I was sold at that point. But I think a lot of guys would love to do that.
I've never hunted elk, so I'm just going on what all my clients have told me. I think probably the only difference is we don't have the intense rut that you guys have. They definitely rut, and the rut is a good time to come and hunt them, but it's a little bit more drawn out, because our animals aren't under the same pressure to breed in the optimal time with your guys' winters that you have there. But
Kevin, you segued right into my next question. When is the best time? And I'll say it too, and I've talked with Peter about this too on the last podcast, is everybody wants to hunt kudu. Seems like almost every guy that calls wanting to talk about hunting with us says, I'd like to get a kudu. And I'm looking at one on the wall right here in front of me that, they're beautiful. When is the best time to hunt? When is your favorite time to hunt kudu?
So, obviously their breeding time, the rut, which does last almost 2 months with our kudu. It obviously has a peak but that would be May and June, which is also a fantastic time of the year, weather-wise for us. But we've just had guys here now in August, and we've been seeing a lot of good bulls actually. So I would say May and June is the best time, and April to August would be good as well. And May, quite a lot of animals sort of overlap with their breeding time. So May is good for warthogs, which is also one of my favorite animals. Great fun to hunt.
You hit on
Are you guys coming in April? Am I right?
We are right at the end of April. Yep, right at the end of April. So it should be great.
You probably, if it's not quite rut, it's also fantastic because the bulls, the kudu bulls, sort of group up into these like pre-rut herds of just bulls. I don't know if your guys elk do that, but you can see 8, 10 bulls together sometimes, which you don't see any other time of the year.
Yeah.
And then the rut, obviously, it's advantageous because you see more bulls, but the bulls maybe are not quite as awake as they normally are, but they're with the cows, and kudu cows are extremely alert. I mean, they have incredible eyesight and hearing. So, you got to watch those cows when you're doing your stalk. So it's not necessarily easier in terms of the hunting. It's just you're just probably seeing more bulls in a day, so you're just getting more opportunities.
Oh, it's going to be fantastic. One of the things, Kevin, that guys talk about when they call folks that have never been before is fencing in South Africa. And without getting into the politics behind it and things like that, I mean, I think, the fencing has a lot to do with really why there are literally probably in some parts of South Africa, especially up in the Limpopo and places like that. I don't think if there weren't the fences, they wouldn't have the wildlife. If there wasn't the private ownership of game, I don't even know if they would have wildlife. But my experience with the Eastern Cape is, at least hunting on your farm and with your company, you don't see the game fencing that you do like up in the Limpopo and different areas. Now there's some private ranches and things like that, but you don't see as much in the Eastern Cape. Can you explain a little why is that? And here's a question that folks ask is they're used to hunting up in the Limpopo or hearing about the fences, but then they ask, well, if there's not as many fences in the Eastern Cape, well, why don't the animals leave? And I kind of ask them like, well, you go elk hunting and there's no fence and there's elk there. They don't leave. That's where they live. Right. So can you kind of hit on that a little bit? Why there's less fencing? I don't know. I don't know the best way to bring it up, but I'll just kind of let you kind of take it. But it's something that definitely comes up when fellas call wanting to talk about a hunt.
Yeah, I think it's something that's discussed a lot about South Africa, and sometimes slightly unfairly used as a stick maybe to beat South Africa as a destination. But there's fencing and there's fencing, and you're so right in that. It was the backbone of saving animals, establishing areas, and it's just about exerting that, being able to apply that management in a certain area, and lots of areas are so massive, it's perhaps not directly affecting the hunting. So I think it depends really on the area, and I think that's why we're booking through, reputable guys like you, the guys have got the information, so they know what they're going to, they know what to expect. Where we are here, we aren't game fenced. You may see a game fence because at certain areas of the boundary of the property, we neighbour maybe a property that's game fenced. So, and then if you're going to be hunting certain species in the Eastern Cape, perhaps like a waterbuck, you will be going to a property be it 4,000 acres or 6,000 acres or 8,000 acres that is game fenced. So it all depends sort of on what you're hunting. But in our area, certainly, for example, let's take kudu. We are talking about completely natural, free-ranging populations. And we even hunt on a lot of our neighboring properties that are just cattle and sheep ranches. So that's where it's a little bit different. I mean, up perhaps on some of the areas up in Limpopo, you're not going to see some cattle beyond an exclusively hunting ranch that's perhaps game fenced. Here, it is just farms. It's just ranches with really good populations of game. So the kudu do move. You obviously, it's important to manage your animals, manage the habitat, manage the hunting pressure, and if you have all the right ingredients, you're going to have a good population. And we sort of manage our areas as a conservancy. So we are working with all the ranches around us to try and optimize, the kudu population and also the quality of the animals. So obviously not to overshoot our quotas, because it works in our area. Because if that is a critical thing, the animals do move off your ranch, and if you have the wrong kind of neighbor, then your quality of your animals, your trophy quality is going to suffer. So that's one of the things you talk about, the value of hunting and the value of why it's so important that we are able to offer hunting and do hunting and have you guys that support this industry, because that is the incentive for managing and looking after these animals and producing, trophy animals that guys can experience a fantastic hunt. So that's a model that works here, but it's all dependent on hunters coming.
Yeah, and David, I was going to say it's kind of the difference between what Kevin's talking about, the fencing up north, and I'm not knocking game fencing in South Africa. It's certainly necessary. I don't think Kevin, the last time I was there with you, as a difference between the Limpopo and the Eastern Cape, every day in the Limpopo, we would leave the lodge and you're hunting on different properties. You go through the fence and you start hunting. I don't think we ever went through a fence ever during the time I was with you. We just never, I don't think we ever did. I don't think we ever hunted on a property with a high fence or ever went through a high fence gate the whole time. Yeah. Right. I mean, I don't, it's just a different part of the country. Yeah.
Yeah. You'll see cattle fences which kudu jump over, and like some of them, like the springbuck, they just creep underneath them. So yeah, it'll be a lot of similarities, out where you guys are, on ranch land where whitetail just jump over the fences. So I think it's people will be familiar with that kind of hunting.
Absolutely. Kevin, can you briefly hit on the difference between a blesbuck and a bontebuck first, and just kind of a brief overview of the history of the bontebuck, its near extinction, and how your family was an integral part in the recovery of that species in South Africa?
Okay, so if you had to see them, they look very, very similar at first glance. Guys will often mistake one for the other. The bontebuck is they almost exactly, they are the exact same size, same sort of looking type of animal, plains game, medium sort of sized animal. Bontebuck have much, much richer colors, so it's almost like a very dark purple brown like gloss on them, and then their white parts, like on the rump and the underbelly, is much whiter and brighter than the blesbuck, which looks like a much drabber animal. And often with the blesbuck, with the horns, in particular the males, they'll go actually quite a light, almost like a straw color, and the Bontebok horns will be pure black. Generally, a good Bontebok are sort of around 14, 15 inches, so they have shorter horns where the blessbuck will go up to 15, 16, 17 inches. Okay. So the Bontebok were, with settlement in South Africa, were found more in the west of the country, towards Cape Town, the Western Cape. And they were very soon, almost hunted to extinction. I think the low point came in 1931. There were only 17 animals left total in the world.
Wow.
So, and then they established a national park then. But I think they obviously wanted then to establish other populations. I mean, they were at risk of some kind of natural disaster, like a big fire or something like that. So, fortunately for us, I think they selected, it was 2 farmers, another one down in the Western Cape, and then my granddad up here in the Eastern Cape. And that was done in the 1950s. And I mean, game capture has advanced greatly since then. It was pretty rudimentary in those days, but my granddad went down to the Western Cape and they caught Bontebok, and they loaded 7 on his truck. He took them all night driving back, probably an half the next day, and he ended up offloading 6. That's on my cousin's place next door on Thorncliffe. One died in transit, and that was the start of our herd that became, at one point, even more than in the Bontebok National Park. The original herd became the biggest herd in the world, and it's probably still the biggest privately owned herd in the world. And from that herd, lots of other herds were established in the Eastern Cape, and even some of the animals went back because they established the actual original Bontebok Park. They decided to establish a new area, which is near a town called Swellendam in the 1960s. And some of ours actually went back to the national park. So, and then they were spread out. So I think nowadays, if my research is correct, the estimate is probably about 3,500 Bontebok now in South Africa.
Wow.
From those,
that's amazing.
Those original animals.
So, it's just such it's an amazing story.
Yeah, and I think these stories from hunters and conservationists like yourself need to be told. I know like a lot of hunting gets a bad rap in a lot of the media, and hunters are what help a lot of these species. So I love hearing that success story. I really do.
The hunting drove that completely, and private individuals, private farmers, hunters, and the black wildebeest was a very similar. The black wildebeest are endemic to South Africa. That they were also endangered. They didn't go quite to those extreme population levels, but they have taken off for exactly the same reasons. And like you say, it's not politically correct or popular to sort of talk about these success stories, because people like to paint hunters as people that are actually threatening the wildlife. But in most instances, it's actually the opposite is the case, and it's driving conservation. Certainly in South Africa, that's our model, and it's one of the reasons why South Africa has got such fantastic populations of wild animals. It's largely due to hunting.
David, as a total side note, and I know I kind of nerd out on some of this stuff. My oldest son in high school did a research project on the Bontebok and the near extinction of it, the restoration of it. And Kevin, I don't know if you remember this, he actually interviewed you or sent you some questions And he got an A on this paper because he actually reached out to someone in South Africa and interviewed them for his research project on the Bontebuk.
Yeah, we
that's
did
so
a
cool.
sort of a Zoom thing a bit like this. So it was my first encounter with that. But yeah, it was fantastic, and it's nice that story gets told, I think.
Yeah, that's so cool, and I think we could, whenever I come over there, we could definitely do some more stuff with it and kind of give it more of a and tell the story even more. I think that with this story, people need to be able to understand that not all hunters are just out for killing. We want to actually save the species too, and I think that's super important for hunters and non-hunters to hear the success stories, and I'm appreciative for you guys working hard to get that to happen. I know it's back in your family and everything, and I'm thankful that they're still around. I was just looking them up a second ago, and they are absolutely gorgeous animals.
They are stunning animals.
Yeah. I did not know what they looked like, to be honest with you. There's a lot of African species that I'm like, there's a what now? So there's a lot of learning from me that's going to happen. But so it kind of segues into my next question is so, and Peyton, you'll be able to kind of help me out with this too. But like expectations and of how to get there. Is it, how long is the flight? Do I fly into Johannesburg? Where do I fly into when I'm coming there for you guys? Is it like a charter flight that I need to get way ahead of time, or what's the process?
Logistically, David, like I'll just use us as an example, because a lot of the hunters going on this trip they've already booked their tickets, Kevin, and I guess we need to do that as well. The point of entry for just like most hunts in Southern Africa is going to be Johannesburg. The last time that Christy and I hunted with Kevin, we actually flew into Cape Town and did some tourist activities before we met with Kevin and the group. But most everybody's going to fly into Johannesburg. They're going to spend the night at a place like Afton Guest House, which is a place that we book for and that we stay all the time. And then you're going to catch a puddle jumper flight, hopefully earlier in the day, from Johannesburg to Port Elizabeth. That's a short flight. It's just a few hundred miles. It's just an Airlink flight. And then Kevin, I'll let you take it from there. Airport pickup, and kind of where do we go from there?
So 99% of our clients fly into Port Elizabeth. East London is an alternative, but Port Elizabeth works best. It's a very nice, pretty small airport, but efficient, easy. Johannesburg is obviously where you'd come in. You clear customs. You do your if you're bringing in rifles, you do your import permits there. And like Peyton said, some guys come direct, but I think spending a night is very advisable, given the jet lag and time change and the length of flight. So I often find that you're not really saving time by trying to push things and come straight. But
yeah, absolutely not. Yep.
People want to do. But from me, I meet the guys at Port Elizabeth Airport, and I'll have also some of the other guides there, depending on the size of the party, and then from there to our place, it's a comfortable. It's around about 2 hours drive, 200 k's. I think in kilometers, not miles, but it's not far. It's pretty comfortable drive. If you're coming in, most of the guys come in a pretty early morning flight. If you've overnighted, you're here by lunchtime. Pack out, relax, have a nice lunch, and then go and shoot on the range, check everything that's all's in order, and then we often even just go for a drive so the guys get a feel for the area and see some animals, and then hunting in earnest probably starts the next morning.
Yeah, Kevin, just so, and I'm looking forward to David doing this, but what are some of just real briefly, some of the side trips? What are some of the other attractions? And what I often tell fellas is when they're on a 10-day hunt, I know about day 6 or 7, I'm ready for a little break. Let's go to a national park and do stuff. I know that's real common. What are some of the attractions that people can take off a day of hunting and check out?
We are blessed with a lot of things, and within not too far away. So you talked about National Park. Addo is a national park, fantastic place to visit. About 90 minutes. So you can get there pretty early. I think you went there, Peyton.
We did.
Great, some fantastic game viewing. We normally take a packed picnic lunch with us. It's a pretty full day, and all the coastline. Some fantastic coastline. Really great beaches that are almost with no one on. We have a very aesthetic coastline with fantastic beaches. Some guys might want to do fishing, so there's charters that run out of Port Alfred or even Port Elizabeth. It's mainly bottom fishing for species, sort of snapper type species, but you can get in some nice fishing. Port Elizabeth has got a company that we've sent guys with that does sort of like what I'd call an ocean safari. Some fantastic whale watching, depending on what time of the year you have, but also seals, dolphins. But certain times of the year we have the southern right whales that breed in Algarve Bay, which is where Port Elizabeth is located.
So all kinds of stuff to do.
Yeah, lots of stuff. I mean, it's a great place to come with your family if you wanted to. It's Eastern Cape's malaria free, a pretty nice climate. So yeah, lots of day trips. So we can set something up that suits sort of what you want to do. I could be here for a long time. We did them all.
Yeah, sold. Kevin, I like I said, I can't tell you how much I'm looking forward to it. I really am, because I've never been before, and my first experience will be with you guys. So I think it'll be neat. But is there anything else that you wanted to talk about before we kind of end up wrapping this thing up? I want to give you a platform to be able to tell people what you think they need to know before coming, or anything that you want to talk about before we kind of wrap this thing up.
I can give a few pointers and words of advice. A trip, it is a big expense. Some guys save for a long time. So when you come, remember it's a holiday. You come and just experience everything. Don't hunt under pressure. That's what I say. Let things come to you. You'll have plenty of opportunities. And so just relax. Let the guide do his work. If he's worth his salt, he'll get you your animals, and just be open to all the sights and sounds and all the experiences. It'll be a whole new experience and all sorts of different new things. And I think the big thing with hunting compared to a lot of other tourism is you really get a close bond with people that you stay with and your guide, because it's a one-to-one experience, and I think a lot of your clients become lifelong friends. We're a pretty small family business, so every person that comes to us is very important to us. So and during a hunt, also there will be ups and downs. You might have a missed shot. You might have a wounded animal. It happens. Don't let it ruin. Just put it behind you. Get back up on the horse, and carry on and enjoy everything. So, bits of advice, just speak to people that have been there before. That's a big plus. Practice if you can. Any shots you can get through on the range. Bring a gun you're familiar with, one that you use at home all the time. And we shoot off sticks, so if you can practice off sticks, do some practical sort of field shooting. The better, the more the better. But yeah, and then just know your limits, be they physically or shooting, and then just always communicate with your guide and just say, I need a break, or I need that shot's a bit too much for me. We need to try and get closer, or something like that. And they will understand. They're there to make your experience all the better. So yeah, those are my few words of advice for anyone that's coming.
David, when I hunted with Kevin, just segueing right off what he just said really quick, when you're talking about communicating with your professional hunter, I had never met Kevin before, and the first day we were out, I communicated with him that, Kevin, I do a lot of bow hunting. I am not the best shot with a rifle. And I can tell you that every shot that I took on that trip, I didn't wound any game. I did miss a mountain reed buck, was the first animal I missed. And then I hit everything after that. Every shot that I took, Kevin was able to get me in position, made me feel comfortable. I shot prone off a bipod every shot because he knew that's what I felt comfortable doing. And he never even tried to pressure me to take a shot off the sticks if I wasn't comfortable. He got me in a spot every time where I could lay down flat with a bipod and be rock steady. And that is appreciated so much. So when he talks about communicating with your professional hunter, that's what they're there to do. So that is something that sticks out in my mind that I remember. It may have been frustrating for Kevin, but it was great. It was great for me. Yeah. But
attention to detail like that goes a long way.
Yeah. But if anybody, like Kevin said, reach out if anybody wants to chat. I can put you in touch with Kevin. You can talk with me. Their website, www.westernsafaris.com. The South Africa section obviously belongs to Kevin on that. Or check out our website, the shoshoneadventures.com. Kevin has his own place on our website and our safari section. Give us a call. I can guide you right to it, and I'll talk the horns off a billy goat about hunting with Kevin and how fantastic it is, and we can put you on it.
Kevin, I really do appreciate you coming on today. It means a world to me to be able to learn about these things before we actually go on them. And I'm looking forward to my first Africa experience being with you guys.
Thanks, David, and thanks for hosting me. It's been great chatting to you guys, and I hope I've given everyone some thoughts and some valuable information.
I think you definitely did. We're going to continue with this series and see where it goes. Going to keep learning and keep dreaming about going over there because it'll be happening soon. So thanks, guys, very much, and I will catch you guys on the next one.